Hello. Welcome to another Logic tutorial with me, Ed the Shed. My name is Ed, but I'm not a shed. In this video, I will tell you all about the stereo spread plugin that comes with Logic. I will also try and give you a few examples of using it if there is time. So, to start off, let's quickly understand the difference between mono and stereo. When we use mono, our signal will be sent through one channel. So even if you have two speakers, the same information will be playing out of both of them. When your audio is in mono, it will sound as if it is coming straight towards you, from the middle. When we use stereo, we distribute the information in the signal across two or more channels. So our left and right speakers won't be playing the same information, like in mono. This gives a much more, often natural sound. If you cover up one of your ears, so you can't hear anything through it, then you are kind of listening in mono, because you are only hearing one signal. Now if you uncover your ear, you are listening in stereo, because both your ears are now listening to slightly different versions of the same thing. When we have a track in stereo, the information that plays out of the left and right speakers will be very similar, but not exactly the same, just like our two ears on our head, not the ears on our bottom. Okay, lovely. Let's open up an instance of stereo imaging. This can be found in the imaging section in the Inserts panel. I will start by explaining how this works, and then I will go through each of the parameters as usual, and then after that, we might be able to implement it into some examples. So, the way this plugin works is it distributes a certain number of frequency bands to either the left or right channels. This also works with mono channels. Hooray! So, if I turn this little bad boy on its side, like this, you will see that there is now a left and right side. These represent your left and right speakers. So half of the frequency bands are being dispersed to the left and the other half, the right. The numbers along the red line in the middle are showing you the frequency in hertz, so if I bring it back up to the normal view, you can see it a bit more clearly. So, our visualizer window in the middle is showing us how many bands we are affecting, and in this case it is 12. It is also showing us how far out to the left or right our frequency bands are being dispersed. In this case it is all the way to the left and right. The last thing our visualizer shows us is how much of the frequency spectrum we are affecting. And again, in this case, we are putting stereo imaging over the whole frequency spectrum. If that confused you a little bit, then don't worry, because I will go over it again at the end, when you are finally a boss at stereo imaging. Okay, let's start going through our parameters now. I will start with the order knob. This knob basically lets you choose how many different frequency bands you want to split the spectrum up into. So I can split the spectrum up into a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 12 bands. The number of bands you choose will always be split up as evenly as possible between the left and right channels. If you are using stereo imaging on your master channel, I would probably recommend using the full 12 bands, but as usual, don't be afraid to experiment. The next thing we would want to look at when using this plugin would probably be this slider at the bottom, here. This lets you choose how much of your frequency spectrum you would like to affect. My best advice when using this slider is to consider what parts in the mix you want to add some stereo imaging to, and why do you want to do that. If you want to use stereo imaging on a single track in your project, then look at the audio in your analyzer, which can be found in the channel EQ. Then, you can see where your audio is peaking in the spectrum, and this will give you a better idea of which area to apply stereo imaging to with your plugin. Generally, stereo imaging is only really effective in the mid and high frequency ranges. Lower frequency ranges are best kept mono, so that things like our lovely bass lines and beautifully crafted kicks can come through in full force. Whack your face. So, last but not least, we have the sliders on the left and right of the visualizer. These sliders let us choose how much stereo imaging we want to apply to the upper and lower frequencies. Or in other words, how far to the left and right we want to disperse our frequency bands. So if I come over to the lower frequency slider here on the left, as I start bringing it down, we notice that I get to 0% and then it goes into minus figures. When we are going into minus figures, we are essentially inverting the stereo imaging, but be careful because this can bring up phasing issues. So that's it for this tutorial. I was going to give you a few examples and scenarios to use this in, but I didn't have enough time to put together a few examples for you, and man's just rolled up to the yard with acid on sugar cubes, so I gotta go make a cup of tea now. Look out for part 2, where I will give you some ideas of when to use this and I will show you a few examples. Thanks for watching, see you next time.